Welcome to Rocket Ship, the home of epic React Native content. I'm Simon Grimm, creator of Galaxies.dev as usual, and in today's episode we have a lot to talk about. We have a couple of news, interesting releases, but beyond that I got some topics I'm absolutely excited about that I want to talk with you regarding Expo, development of my own app, and other news beyond that. So before we do that, and honestly this podcast almost didn't happen because I was so caught up with my own idea, let's dive into the news of the React Native ecosystem first. First of all, we've talked a couple of times about this already. Yetchek announced it, Uniwind version 1.0 is finally released. If you haven't heard about it, he announced it about, I think, almost like 3-4-ish months ago. So it came kind of fast after that announcement. And people got really excited about this because, of course, the general idea of using Tailwind with React Native is cool, but also not new since we have Native Wind. But Uniwind promised to have faster, let's call it a faster engine in general. Now, I honestly haven't tried it too much yet. I still want to do this on a live stream to get an impression about it, but everything I've seen and read between the lines is that people get really happy with it so far. With the general setup, with the developer experience, and everything that Uniwind brings to the table. Now, as I said, I've used Native Wind before and that worked kind of fine for me. Uniwind seems to be faster, so it's claiming to be 2.5x faster than Native Wind right out of the box. That is, of course, a big claim. It has a CSS parser that you can combine not only with Tailwind, but also with general CSS classes that you can use in your application. And it is also kind of built on top of Uni-style. So if you've used that before, Uni-style is like a style sheet on steroids. And Uniwind, I'm getting confused with all these names. Uniwind has the same core from Uni-styles, which makes it blazing fast. So again, I would just recommend to give it a try. If you have a new project coming up, I would just try it out. That's usually the best thing. You can read a lot about, oh, Uniwind is cool, Native Wind is cool, that library is cool. Just get a feeling for it yourself. Nothing can beat that. Nobody can tell if this is the right thing for your project. Maybe it's Tamagui, or maybe it's just style sheet. So give it a try. Just want to mention that it is finally stable in version 1. And they're also, as far as I know, working on a pro version, which is paid. So we're going to have to talk about that maybe as well later. On top of that, after Uniwind was released, I also saw a tweet on X from Hero UI. Now, I gotta be honest, I've never used Hero UI. I don't really know what it is. Hero UI native beta 1 is live, and they fully migrated to Uniwind, which is cool. They're kind of like the first, or I guess the first component library that's built on top of Uniwind. So for Native Wind, I know that Dan also had Native Wind UI, which is essentially native Wind components that you can easily use in your application, because both Uniwind and Native Wind are just styling libraries. So you can use Tailwind in your React Native app. That is the cool thing. But there's not like a card or a form or a drop-down component out of the box. So pretty cool to see that immediately Uniwind is used by a component library. They also saw improvement, performance up to 250%. Yeah, well, cool design system. Honestly, it really looks really cool. I think I gotta try out Hero UI at some point as well. I will give them a follow because I know Twitter followers are still the metric, so they have 18K followers. That sounds legit. They're Y Combinator, building the future UI for web and mobile. Okay. I didn't know we needed a new future for UI web, but okay, let's do it again. Let's do it again. We can also have Bun and Yarn, and let's not go into that. Okay, next topic. We have Valdi. So not Vivaldi, but Valdi is a cross-platform UI framework that delivers native performance without sacrificing developer velocity. If you are not watching this on YouTube and you haven't heard about this, you probably don't know who released this or if this matters at all in your universe. Well, let me tell you that the company behind Valdi is actually Snapchat. So that gives the whole project some credibility, I guess. Now, just like with Uniwind, I haven't tried this. Honestly, I can't try every new project that comes out on this planet. I try to get an impression of what people say about it, how it looks. I dive into some docs and FAQs, but beyond that, like, I would probably just do that. I would just be SDK tester if I did that. But the code of Valdi sort of looks like React Native, like React in general. There's not too many differences, although of course like components are written in lowercase and imports look different. Why did they create this is probably the question you came up with. And they claim for 8 years it has powered a large portion of Snap's production apps. So it's quite interesting to see, similar to Lynx, a couple of months that was built by the company behind TikTok, now Valdi is open sourced. And it's like all these companies have been building sort of their own frameworks, their own cross-platform frameworks over the last like 5 or 8 years. And now they're coming out with that stuff. I'm curious to see in the future if like more companies suddenly claim, hey, we also got the future of cross-platform frameworks here and you should use this because XYZ. I mean, Snapchat probably doesn't care too much about if you use this or not. So yeah, well. Anyway, it's another way to build cross-platform apps, and if we want to talk about why this matters, we should probably talk about why use Valdi instead of React Native, and they have some FAQs on that as well. Essentially, React Native and Valdi are quite similar in how they work, allowing at the core each developer to write their UI in TypeScript and so on. I think the main difference for these things, and I think this is kind of true for Lynx as well, is that those companies try to have a bigger focus on the native part of React Native. So over the last couple of months or years, React Native is investing a lot into be, of course, great at native, but also a lot considerably into like aligning with web APIs, enabling CSS, making sure React Native works on the web grade as well. And these libraries, these SDKs like Valdi or Lynx, are taking kind of, at least in my assumption, the opposite approach. They're focusing first on the native part. They want to deliver the best possible experience. I mean, if you're a Snapchat, you need great performance. If you're a TikTok, you need the best possible performance. Otherwise, you can't do anything cross-platform. You would have to go for a native iOS app in that case. So these companies probably need like the last 1, 2, 3% gains in performance that you can unlock by going even more native than React Native. I think that's the main reason why they did this. And that is just, of course, like my thought, if React Native and the native integrations, the new architecture, which was just rolled out, if all of that stuff had happened 5, 8 years ago, I think that those companies would probably have just chosen React Native at that point. I think they would have gotten most of what they need out of React Native at that point. But if you imagine back 8 years, then of course, or 5 years or whatever, then for TikTok or for Snapchat or whatever other company, React Native probably wasn't the like best solution out there. And so they went with their own technology. Now, wrapping all of this up, should you use Valdi instead of React Native? I don't think so. Just like with Lynx, this is pretty new. There's a small community. You probably won't find a lot of tutorials on my channel about Valdi in the near future, just like for Lynx. If you feel fancy and you have 3 hours to waste on a weekend, of course, spin up a Valdi project or a Lynx project and see for yourself what you can do with it and if this is something for your next application. But again, I think this is for companies that really want like the last percentage of performance gains. And I think like 95% of new applications that we or you develop will be just fine with React Native, and the user probably won't notice any difference. So that's my take on Valdi versus React Native. I could be completely wrong, but well, let's see in a year. Okay, more news from the React Native ecosystem. Evan Bacon shared a nice little new template. So we all know, I think we all know, that you can use React Native WebGPU, which was created by William Candillan and the Shopify team. And Evan came up with a cool new template. So you can just do create Expo app with and then -e with -WebGPU. This will give you a React Native application with React 3, Fiber, and WebGPU included that works actually on native and web. Pretty impressive. Of course, this is not entirely new, but he pointed this out. And I also saw this because like a day before or so, there was a very popular tweet from Konrad Rechko, who created like a jelly slider. That one looks, I mean, I probably wouldn't use a slider like that in my application. If you're listening this, it's like a slider, try to imagine it, a slider in like a jelly. I mean, you pull it up and it pulls up and then you expand it and it pulls down like a snake or a snail. It's kind of fancy. It is made with React Native gesture handler and of course WebGPU or even typegpu plugin from Software Mention. And that got a lot of attention, and that actually works on native and web as well. I think it's just pretty impressive what you can do with like the shaders and WebGPU technology. It is a bit beyond my skills, but maybe AI can help me like implement a jelly slider in the future as well. Then I saw another tweet from Alek Mikuchki. I think, yeah, he's DevRel at Software Mention and I think also working at the Expo team. And he shared a pretty cool example of a new like splash screen transition where like your app opens and then the splash screen transitions into your app in an icon. Sort of like a shared element transition, probably. It's the best way to explain it. But anyway, it's just cool to see some like changes in that area. Usually I just hear the recommendation that you probably don't want to have a splash screen anymore in today's application because they load so fast usually. But having a nice little transition available could be really cool. So he says, coming soon to a default template near you. I'm absolutely looking forward to that, and I will tell you more if I hear about it. Last two news. One is about shared element transitions, and we've talked about this a bunch of times. There is an open PR for the React Native reanimated package to put shared element transitions on the new architecture behind a feature flag. I think I said this a couple of times that this is coming. There's now a lot of traction. I saw a lot of comments on the PR. So yeah, many new comments over the last couple of days. I expect to land this in reanimated in the next version very soon. It is still open, but I promise we will soon have shared element transitions again. And finally, one news from Expo that I just noticed this morning. They had the Expo App Awards going on for a couple of weeks now. And I think, I'm not thinking, they write it. They just got a lot more, many more submissions than they expected. I think they wanted to try this Expo App Award thing, and maybe they expected like 20 or 100 submissions, but they got 1,200 app submissions. That means you got to install 1,200 apps, or in different categories. You got to have a couple of 100 apps to test to rank against each other. And therefore, the announcement of the winner is pushed back slightly to the 20th of November, which is when this episode goes live in about 2 days. So if you submitted, be patient. There will be a winner soon. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see Expo App Awards from now on every year. Because I heavily used this over the last couple of days, I want to share an underrated tool this week again with you. And this tool is a command, a CLI command called npx testflight. Now, what is this? A couple of months ago, Evan Bacon announced this thing that helps you to quite quickly go from app to testflight, or in general iOS App Store Connect submission. And I never really used it, I think. Maybe I gave it a try once, but under no real scenario. So now this week I was working on an app that I will talk more about in a second. And I wanted to get this app up to App Store Connect, and I want to get it to testflight so my friends and my dad could test it. Now, I used the command and I was blown away by how easy this works. If you run npx testflight or bunix testflight, doesn't really matter, in your project, it will do everything for you. It will do absolutely everything. If you run it the first time, it is listed here on the Expo docs. It will create or detect an EAS project. It will set up everything with bundle identifier, EAS JSON. It will sign into the developer portal. It will generate credentials for you. It creates a production build then with EAS. So at that point, you can already close the command, which is, by the way, like after 30 seconds or so after it's uploaded to EAS servers. And then it's not only built and it's not only pushed to App Store Connect in general, it's also put into testflight and you get the email from testflight. So essentially, after I was done developing like version 0.0.1 of my game, I just ran the command, I added the stuff, 30 seconds, okay, you can leave this and kill the command. I did this, I went to the living room and I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later, I checked my emails and there was the link to testflight. It is absolutely incredible. So if you're working on any app, internally, like a little tool or whatever it might be, try the npx testflight command. It is absolutely underrated. Some quick updates on the projects I've been working on this week. It was an absolutely fantastic week in terms of progress for my projects. This week, I finally released the Wolt Clone. This actually is, once again, an 8-hour video on YouTube. At this point, it's already close to 10K views, which is more than I ever expected. But I absolutely enjoyed this, and I hope it's really going to be helpful for a lot of people. It also includes this Git workflow where I use CodeRabbit for AI PR reviews. I absolutely loved it. Honestly, check it out, even if you just like skip through it or maybe leave a like or a comment. Really, I'm very proud of that video, I gotta say. So check it out, build a food delivery app with React Native on YouTube. On top of that, I finally jumped on a live stream again. The last one was about 2 years ago. So I was really happy that I finally did it. Honestly, I just noticed that in the peak, I had like 69 people watching the stream. I didn't even notice. I thought there were like 5 or 10-ish people. Okay, that was pretty cool. Good I didn't notice in that moment because we built a little React Native Godot game. So I know Jamin is sometimes listening here. Jamin, I know you are like a Godot expert probably. I'm just like a React Native developer trying to make a Godot game work inside because there was a new package and I wanted to show it to the community. That stream also has like 3K views at this point. What's going on? Thanks, YouTube. But anyway, it was just cool to hang out on the stream once again. It felt really great. I hope I can do it more frequently. I don't know if I can do it every week, but probably every other week and just explore new technologies. For the next one, I have planned to just dive into Uniwind and build something cool. And honestly, it's for me not so much about like the building stuff. I just want to hang out with people. So I hope I can really do this more often. And if I catch you on the stream, that would be amazing in the future. Now, why did this podcast almost not happen? And what is Simon working on secretly? Well, over the last couple of days or during the last week, I had this idea that I always want to have like my little pet project again. And I told you a couple of times before, I have this idea for a game and then I tried it and then I like abandoned it after 2 days. So now I had a a different idea that combined like concepts of a game that I love, which is Heyday, in more sort of like casual idle gaming in portrait mode, just easy for kids of the 90s who don't really expect super graphics. So I was tinkering on my own version of like my harvesting game, and I call this one probably Tiny Harvest. And if you're on YouTube, you can now see a preview of that game. That game has evolved, honestly, a lot over the weekend. It started out as like a little side project. I thought, maybe we can just like have this casually on the side, and then I will work in December on it when it's like downtime a bit and I have something to play around with. But my brain was like, no, Simon, full steam ahead. Only this is important. And so from Thursday on, like every free minute of my day was spent on building out this game. I don't know, honestly, that really never happened to me before, that I was so caught up with an idea of an application or a game. in part because it honestly works pretty well and has so many features and functionalities already that I want to see in this game. Whenever I test it, I start from 0 again, and then I work to like the first 10, 20 levels and take like 20 notes about things I want to improve. And up until this point, it is really fun to play this game to me. And I hope I can deliver an early test version of this very, very soon. The concept is quite easy. If you're just listening to the podcast, you plant stuff, you have crops, you can craft items like a bread, and then you can sell them to orders. You have different areas you can explore, you can compete in expeditions, and then there are also like daily events and other things that are hidden more towards the higher levels. And all of these things are already present in that application, and honestly, it's just fun to play it to me and being creative and implementing that. Now, here comes one interesting thing. I have probably written, at this point, 10, maybe 5% of the code by hand. Everything else in this application was developed with AI tools. This app started or I just wanted to have a quick first draft of my idea that I came up with by using Bolt and Replit. Then that was actually okay-ish, honestly. Like the one-shot Bolt gave me or Replit, that was not too bad. And I was like, oh, maybe we can take this further. So I created a local project with the CLI. And then I generally brought in some components and some views from both Bolt and Replit and tried to combine it. Then also at the same time, or like a couple of weeks ago, Cursor announced their new Compose 1 model. And I think this model is absolutely incredible because I didn't really notice, but it was activated in my Cursor AI. I just used it the entire time to draft new features. Okay, make this card. Okay, make this game engine. Okay, we want to have segmented control. Okay, we need new pages and stuff like that. I am only prompting. So I think I finally uncovered how AI engineering really works, and I learned a bunch of things during that time. So I use a combination now of like ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is actually nice, like a history or general view about this project because we talked about it. And I usually ask when we have, like just today, I wanted to re-implement local notifications. So I asked ChatGPT for the exact specification document I can give to Claude. I create a markdown file in my project which outlines exactly what should happen. And then in Cursor, I tell it, okay, follow exactly this document, implement the feature. And this works like 99% of the time without any problems. Of course, I had to debug, there were problems sometimes, we had to iterate on prompts, but in many cases, the first version, and it was unbelievable fast when I used Compose 1. But I think at this point, in just like 2 days, I maxed out on my monthly tokens for the Compose 1 model, so I gotta be a bit more careful with that now. But yeah, it's been incredible. I always loved AI and code completion and that stuff and having a little prompt here and there. But what I've seen here and experienced now with this game is absolutely beyond everything I have experienced so far with AI. It is incredible, powerful, this model. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, it is still like an indie game, of course, but so many things and pieces work together. Just this morning, we revamped the entire game arc, or did this yesterday as well, from the maximum level cap. So please spread out all the buildings and crafts and align the XP, and it works in 10 different files, and then it's just done. And you play it and it's like, yeah, great, you just did it. So the current state of the game, if I had developed this without AI in 3 years ago, first of all, I don't think I would have gotten this far because I had abandoned the project way earlier because it takes so much time. Second, if I had stick to it, the stage here would probably have taken me half a year, I guess. And right now, it was about 4 or 5 days that I've been working on this game. So that is the reason that my mind is absolutely blown away. And yeah, I've seen things now that I just can't unsee. And after this project, I need to digest a bit what happened here and how I can translate this to the future and maybe help you also with this. But yeah, the whole AI story thing. Anyway, I don't want to ramble here too much on this. I will hopefully soon share an update of this application so we can have a little test flight phase and you can uncover more bugs. It's not gonna be perfect, but I absolutely love my game, and I also just today, before this recording, purchased the domain, so things of my game are getting serious. Alright, wrapping up this a bit longer podcast with some trending technology topics. I initially planned to talk about some debugging issues, but this one is already pretty long. I just wanted to share that I recently posted on X a little meme about like when your React Native build works after 8 hours of debugging, and that one got like almost 600 likes and 33 reposts, and I was like, everyone was leaving comments, and it just proved to me once again that we haven't solved debugging in React Native. So this was really like one of the most popular things I recently posted. It was just for a joke, but it looks like so many people out there are still frustrated with debugging React Native applications. So I pray for all of you, and I hope you get through it. Use some AI, maybe that's gonna make it better. Then I also wanted to talk about Snapchat with Valdi, but I think we said everything about it. Give it a try. I don't think it will dethrone React Native. It was not meant for that. It might compete with links, honestly, but we will see what the future holds. On top of that, I also had a versus between Nativewind and Uniwind. This is also inspired by my own interest, because I talked to both Jacek and I talked to Dan about like, what's here the real difference between these two projects. And Uniwind tells in the documentation that it was heavily, of course, inspired by Nativewind and that Nativewind did a great job. But I think kind of Nativewind now, Uniwind now wants to be the thing you use if you want to use Tailwind with React Native. And maybe that is the best way. But then the question comes up like, why are Dan and Mark still working on Nativewind? And they still trust the project and believe in the project. And they had a nice discussion, the state of Nativewind, which I think they have like every week. I recommend this for everyone to check out. They, especially Mark, I think, briefly explained the differences between Uniwind and Nativewind, that Nativewind has more like a focus on bringing general CSS into React Native and making everything work from the web on React Native, whereas Uniwind focuses more on making Tailwind work in the best possible way. I said it before, you can also have general CSS with Uniwind, but as Mark explained it, it looks like the main focus of Uniwind is Tailwind, and the main focus of Nativewind going forward is like web support or supporting everything from the web in React Native. That state of Nativewind also had an interesting discussion in general about like what happens over the next 3 or 5 years in the React Native ecosystem. And they both brought up the idea that we're seeing more of these like libraries emerge, and we're seeing like competitors emerge. We also have already a second framework for React Native next to Expo. I think it was called Rock. No, Rock was the app. Was it Rock? Maybe it's Rock, or will Rock the development tools? I get confused with all these names. But we talked about this before, and there was one. So Mark was curious what's going to happen in the landscape over the next years, because there could be more competitors to Expo now that companies see what Expo is doing and how much Expo is giving away for free and how big the React Native community is. So we're living in interesting times. We have great tools available as developers, so it's absolutely incredible what you can do with the tools. If you can combine it with AI, it's even more incredible. But it's also exciting to see what's going to happen over the next 1, 2, 3 years in the React Native ecosystem and to the packages in it, around it. So, as always, this hopefully ends our podcast on a good note. I hope you enjoyed the show. Leave a comment on YouTube. And as always, happy coding, Simon. Thanks for joining today's episode. My goal is to share interesting stories and insights into the world of React Native development. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. And on Spotify and Apple, you can leave up to a 5-star review. Because podcasts, and especially niche podcasts like this, are hard to find, subscribing and leaving a review does help me a lot. On top of that, check out my React Native courses on galaxies.dev that cover a variety of topics from getting started to building and publishing your mobile app. Finally, you can share today's episode with a friend or colleague who would enjoy the topic of the show. If you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, find me on X or leave a comment on YouTube. And last but not least, thank you for listening and happy coding. Simon.